Let's move from color to texture. Works of art can have actual texture, like the roughness of a stone sculpture, or visual texture. Van Gogh's wheat field with cypresses has both. Van Gogh applied his oil paint thickly in a technique known as impasto, which we'll discuss in more detail later on. The paint stands off the surface of the canvas. You can see the shadows cast here by the ridges. If you were to run your fingers over the surface of the painting, which of course you would never be permitted to do, you would feel the actual texture of the hardened paint. However, Van Gogh has also captured visual texture. We get the sense that the texture of the trees is different from that of the wheat. And the painting as a whole has a sense of texture from the repeating, swirling strokes. Van Gogh has captured a sense of space in this painting. We realize that the agitated clouds lie behind the tumbling mountains, waving cypress, and wind-tossed wheat. He's created space by overlapping these forms, as well as through the principle that closer objects are darker in value than farther ones, and that vegetation, hills that are the same color in reality, will appear green when they're closer and blue when they're farther away. In this small image from an illustrated manuscript, Maharana Amar Singh II, Prince Sangram Singh, and courtiers watch the performance of an acrobat and musicians. Space is presented not scientifically or optically, but intuitively. We understand that the animals at the right of the image are not standing on top of each other, or that the ground has not been tipped up behind the party so that we see a grassy wall. Rather than being smaller, since they're farther away, the figures in the pavilion are simply above the dancers. We understand as being closer to us on the lawn. The use of perspective here isn't overly concerned with how the eye perceives the objects in space. Instead, it tells a particular story as clearly and straightforwardly as possible. Another technique for representing space is called linear perspective. It began in the classical world, as we can see in this fresco, and depends on the realization that objects get smaller as they recede into space. Far enough in the distance, at the vanishing point, they disappear to the eye. Think about looking down train tracks and the illusion that at a certain point, the rails actually intersect. The point at which they do so is called the vanishing point. You can also find a vanishing point in urban environments, say by tracing lines along roof lines on a street. I illustrate this effect here with a photograph. The photographer stood in the center of the street, which recedes into the distance. You can see that closer buildings are larger, while farther ones appear much smaller. If we were to trace straight lines along the roofs of buildings in this photograph, those lines would meet at the vanishing point. We can't see the horizon, but we can see where it would be based on the vanishing point, so I've put it in too. It was during the Italian Renaissance that artists really formalized this phenomenon and used it to give a sense of space to their artworks. In this image by the Italian Renaissance artist Piero della Francesca, you can see just how carefully he has used this scientific approach to create the sense of receding space. Even the pattern of the stone pavement helps us see this invented environment as real, three-dimensional space. Because artworks utilizing linear perspective appear to us as more realistic, or the way the world appears in a photograph, we might be tempted to think of the use of linear perspective as a somehow superior depiction of space. However, one of the things that's wonderful about artworks or representations of the world is that they are the artist's own recording. Art is not nature. I cannot stress enough that a sunset is not art. And the convention of linear perspective is a particularly Western tool that artists have used. However, artists, particularly in modern and contemporary art, and often inspired by non-Western traditions, also often choose to subvert those very conventions. Take a moment to look again at the image of the dignitaries, courtiers, and acrobats. How does it differ from Piero's Italian Renaissance painting? What are the advantages to its use of intuitive space?